Blizzard have a plan to fix this, a group finder full of ads, but it's probably going to backfire. They've also decided to print tons of money again, which has surprising benefits for many people, and at the same time, you're being denied something extremely cool, and the add-on Apocalypse, or disarmament, as Ian perhaps a bit more accurately calls it, has taken a little bit of a shocking turn. So, welcome back to this edition of the Warcraft news. It's a particularly spicy one. It's no secret that the group finder is just a nightmare. At all times of day, it's flooded with these advertisements. Not just regular players offering boosts, but full-on organizations offering all kinds of services. WoW Vendor, for example, lists boosts here. And when you go to their site, as instructed, it's, for far more than just Mythic Plus carries. They offer everything, even including gold, and account-sharing Mythic Plus runs for hundreds of dollars. Of course, both of those things are extremely against the terms of service. And these in-game ads are honestly a plague. And sure, you can report them, but who wants to bother with all of that every time you play the game you're paying for? So naturally, Blizzard wants to end the problem, and they've got a fix for Midnight. Now, I say fix, but there is a little bit of a catch. So take a look at this. The Midnight Group Finder has got new playstyle options. They're for learning, relaxed, and competitive. Fairly decent options, and they basically mean you should know what to expect from the group. But then there's this other one. Carry offered. Now, in theory, all of these boost offers could go in here, and if you just untick that category in the filter, then bam, you've got yourself a lovely, clean group finder. Job done. Except that's kind of obviously not how this is going to play out, because these things are advertisements. They are supposed to be viewed by as many people as possible. So what will they do? Well, they're not going to pick the boosting one, they're just going to pick learning or relaxed to catch the people that they're advertising to, right? Makes sense. So unless Blizzard starts filtering out the phrases that they all use, nothing's really going to change. And in fact, this might make things a little bit worse. And maybe the rub is there's no replacement for actual moderation. But here's the wrinkle in their plan. Now that offering a carry is part of World of Warcraft's own UI, well, this whole thing now just feels acceptable. Just like with, say, the trade services chat. Having carries and boosts be visible by default is a mistake, I think. New players are going to be greeted with incessant bot spam, and they're going to learn that paying to win is seemingly acceptable. Hopefully, Blizzard are able to eventually figure out a long-term solution here that actually hurts these black or grey markets. After all, Blizzard would far rather have your money instead. And on that, well, are you ready for another consumption opportunity? Our friends at Blizz aren't shy about using a little bit of psychological marketing. One of their favorites is, of course, FOMO, the fear of missing out. Almost every new bundle is put on the store for a limited time, and that puts a little bit of pressure on you. Buy it quick, or you'll miss it. Well, that only works if we know that something is not coming back. You know, like how the Gilded Brutosaur has just came back. It is the $90 convenience mount, it's back, it's in the store, and it was last sold last year as a limited time special for WoW's 20th anniversary. So, another anniversary, another consumption opportunity. At least this time you know it's probably going to come back next year, so if you don't have the money or the gold right now, maybe that's fine. But it raises a question. Why would Blizzard risk playing their hand this obviously? Because FOMO doesn't work without the fear. Well, here's my idea. I think it's a bit of a comeback tour, where basically you missed it last time, so now you've got a bonus, special chance. Or maybe they're doing this because of player housing. Maybe they think the returning wave of players will be gigantic, so that's the right time to offer a very convenient, very exciting item on the store. You know, perfectly timed. But of course, housing isn't in just yet, so you may be wondering, surely everyone who wanted this thing bought it last year? Well, the good news is we can actually go and see. According to data for Azeroth, 18% of tracked accounts owned the Brutosaur. That was, of course, until it came back, where now, after 1 week of it being on sale, that number is up to 21%. Now, data for Azeroth tracks about 1.3 million accounts. That means that we can do some napkin maths. Growing from 18 to 21 adds 3%. That's about 40,000 accounts. And that is, as absurd as it sounds, another $3.6 million. And that's money they've got even before player housing brings people back. But of course, there are more questions here. This is only assuming direct sales for cash. The real figure will actually be much higher. It's an expensive auction house mount, so surely the gold barons are the target customers, not the average players. Here's the thing. Rather strangely, that's exactly what Blizzard wants, because if someone buys the Brutosaur for $90, they get $90. But if a player buys it for gold via doing WoW token shenanigans, the maths is actually different. A WoW token gives you $15 of Battle.net balance, so you'd have to buy 6 tokens, which would cost you about 2 million gold with current prices. That 2 million gold doesn't go to Blizzard. It goes to, I don't know, John Warcraft, the guy who sold you the tokens. Now, John Warcraft bought those tokens from Blizzard for $20 each, and that would mean that any Brutosaurs bought with gold actually made Blizzard $120. So, Blizzard have already made somewhere between $3.6 and $4.8 million from the Brutosaur this year at a minimum. That's based just on the accounts, of course, that are captured by data for Azeroth, and I think you can be damn sure that this will be back every year like clockwork, even if that's not very exciting. But what is exciting, though, is this new mount. You've never seen mounts advertised like this before. These are new fully customizable panthers that are so sick they got their own animated short showing off their different forms as they face off against anime Dimensius. It's even got a Digimon reference, there's a banging 80s cartoon soundtrack, and it's honestly one of the best store mount promos that Blizzard have ever done. A little bit of a problem though. They're not done for us. These are mounts completely unique to the Chinese version of World of Warcraft, and as banging as they are, they're not alone. Classic in China is actually getting a brand new mount with a unique setup. Everbringer, the Deathwing style mount with whelplings that tag along as it flies. And not just for show, they're also a vendor and a mailbox. It seems awesome at first glance, as do the Panthers, but like everything, there is actually a bit more to this story. That's because these aren't store mounts. Not really. You see, these are parts of the Treasures of Azeroth event that's coming to NetEase as well, and like many of NetEase's other games, it's a gacha fest. Basically, Chinese players will buy treasure coins and they'll then spend those coins on random draws from a hefty prize pool. We don't know the exact details, but we do at least know this. If having to gamble hundreds of dollars is the price of these panthers, then as cool as they are, maybe you and I are better off without them. Of course, NetEase somewhat gets to run WoW how they like over there, and while these mounts and the Titan Reforged servers do seem great, they clearly come at a cost, which is basically the type of business model that is a hell of a lot more acceptable in that region of the world. But still, these models exist, these mounts exist, and I hope they'll eventually make their journey to the West. You know, just with a fixed price instead. Over the beta, Blizzard have been loosening restrictions and add-ons. The feedback has clearly been flooding in, where players just want more customization, which doesn't go against Blizzard's goals, so naturally they've obliged. And most recently, they've opened up a few specifics. One is the cast bar. Add-ons can now see what a player is casting, and that means they can display a custom cast bar for you instead of Blizzard's cast bar. So that's quite nice. Then the second thing they'll be able to access is class resources. That's things like, say, soul shards. And here's the results of all of that, where, visually, it does look like class weak auras are back. You might be thinking, didn't Blizzard want to stop this sort of thing? Well, not this sort of thing, because something is very different this time. You see, in the middle, this is the cooldown manager. Blizzard's own cooldown manager, just that it has a different layout and a custom skin. At the bottom, there's a custom cast bar. The items on the left are just items on an action bar. And then here at the top, you see a custom resource display for soul shards. That's a function that Blizzard just let add-ons go and do again. And actually, Blizzard considers all of this stuff to be acceptable. And the reason why is that, yes, it may look like weak auras, but it's not weak auras, and it can't do many of the things weak auras could do, right? So none of this should be able to do any of the custom conditional logic. So if a spell glows or a resource glows, it's not because someone wrote very smart code in the community, it's because Blizzard said it should, as a part of how they've designed their game to be played and how they've designed their classes. So what all of this is just window dressing over what the base UI can do. But whenever I say just, I think that's kind of unfair. One of the things people love about add-ons is just customizing the game to look the way that they want. And this allows them to do that, which I think is a good thing. And honestly, I think it's a pretty solid landmark. I think this is the actual add-on disarmament that Ian was talking about, where now add-ons can handle customization, but Blizzard handles features. And because Blizzard handles features, they can make sure that those features are in alignment with the design of their classes and the design of their encounters. Though, of course, that's not to say that all of Blizzard's work is done. There's a lot of work to do in things like, say, the damage meters. And on that, we will have a breakdown of how Midnight's UI is coming along very soon. But in the meantime, Midnight's new lore has got a few interesting wrinkles that I want to warn you about. So to get that, you can check out this video next.